You know what makes a really great story, in my opinion, is a really good setup, a really good prologue, a good introduction to say what kind of story you're going into. And for a medium like film, I think that is very important. Sometimes you can go straight in, but sometimes you need a little bit of build-up, even if it's just setting the mood through the music or the credits. And this is something that I've noticed that Tim Burton films really do capture. I have loved pretty much all the prologues. It's amazing. He sets you up what kind of film you're in for and makes you understand straight away. So I decided to do my top 10 Tim Burton prologues. And of course this is all opinion based, so you might have different opinions. But anyway, so enjoy the list. One of the things, and I think I remember saying this in my Phantom of the Opera analysis in Act 1, was that it's amazing how you can sort of start to understand a certain character even before you actually meet them. And Big Eye certainly does this. And I might be getting this all wrong, but anyway, here's what I see. So the first thing that you see is a close-up of the painting, and of course the close-up of the eyes, of course. And you hear this very kind of lonely, melancholy tune coming from Danny Elfman, and so to me that represents Margaret, because that's her feelings towards the paintings, and because you get a close-up, you get the detail of the paint and the way it's done. And then suddenly you see the painting, making copies and prints and everything, and then a sudden shift of music transforms. That is Walter taking over, and so that's the business side, the salesman side, and then it just all gets faster and faster and faster, showing the popularity of the paintings. And then the close-up of the name Keane, it's like, which Keane is it? And it's like, so literally within 2 minutes you're pretty much given the character and story within the first 2 minutes. That is amazing, and I love it when you do stuff like that. Like that was, I thought, yeah, within the first 2 minutes I was sold. I was like, this movie's gonna be great. Well, I mean, it's Tim Burton, of course it's gonna be great, but it's like, oh, it was absolutely amazing, and I love it when you get that, and Big Eye certainly does that for me. Dark Shadows, well, I think this is mainly from, it certainly sets that kind of tone. Now again, even though I watched a few episodes of the TV show, because I was given the DVD before the movie came out, and, I remember it had that, I don't know how to say it, they had very much emphasis on the waves from the ocean, and there was Victoria Winters narrating, and so it was a show that set it up every single episode, so it was interesting. But of course you need the prologue. You need to understand where Barnabas comes from, who he is, the family, the legacy that he built, and of course the relationship between him and Angelique and how he became a vampire. And what I really love about it is because obviously it's being set in the 1700s? 1800s? I'm gonna be like, yeah, 1800s, that sounds about right. And I remember the first scene when you see them boarding the ship, it looks like an oil painting for me. I don't know what it is. The photography looked spectacular, and it sort of set the tone a little bit of the sort of darkness of it. And then I love the idea of having, when you see Angelique and Barnabas, I love that the whole room's sort of red and stuff. I thought that was a really nice touch. And then of course, everything's suddenly brighter when Josette comes in, and it's like, I really love that. And of course the transformation, I love that they didn't do too much effects in that one. It was literally just Johnny kind of, you know, kind of feeling a bit weird, and then suddenly he turns around and the makeup's on, and it's like, you know, that's fine. But the thing that sets it up is the waves, and I was reading it in the visual companion. The waves were meant to represent just all of the emotions of the show, you know, and certainly the way they shot it, particularly during the transformation, is the chaos of it, and the kind of, you know, that kind of painful journey of becoming a vampire, and of course, you know, that's what I got out of it. So it just really set it up. And I also like, you know, the fact that, like I said, in the original TV show, Victoria Winters always introduces it. And then she's the first character that comes in when you're in 1972 on a train. That is how the first episode of Dark Shadows, I mean, I believe it was the first episode, I'd be very surprised if it wasn't, was done, and so I thought that was great. And so again, it's still capturing the spirit of the show. So that's why I say I was glad that I watched a few episodes before I watched the movie, because I don't know, I just sort of I got references immediately, and I love that. So, you know, good job. Well, Ed Wood is kind of acts in the same as Big Eyes in my mind, because again, it sort of explains the kind of character that you're going in for. Particularly, like the prologue and the main titles. It was an homage to Plan 9 from Outer Space, because you've got. You know, you've got the narrator introducing it, even though it was from a coffin this time, but then you suddenly go out into a cemetery and all the cast names and, you know, everything is on the tombstones, just like Plan 9. And of course the music, it sets it up completely, you know, the black and white, you know, it was like, you know, they were trying to make it look like an Ed Wood movie, and so having that prologue, that was, you know, a huge homage to Plan 9, that was like, you know, it sort of understood, like, okay, this is the kind of director that he was, these are the kind of movies that he wanted to do. And so if you never heard of him, it's kind of like, you know, because I didn't heard of him until I, you know, watched the movie, and it sort of already set it up saying, okay, so he's this kind of director, okay. You know, and then you end up loving the character anyway, even if his movies weren't successful, so, you know, but the prologue really set it up, and just considering that I had no idea who Ed Wood was, but, you know, so that's good. I can't have a top 10 prologue list without Batman. And of course the main reason for this is the Batman theme. I've already talked about, I remember doing a video on my top 10 Tim Burton soundtracks, and Batman was definitely on there. I don't know if it was high on my list. Actually, I have it written down somewhere. Oh, it was number 8. Okay, it wasn't that high. But the theme is would definitely be up there. But, like, I love that. Again, this is probably because of my own personal introduction to Batman, because, you know, I wasn't exactly a huge fan. You know, I was aware of, like, the backstory and why he became a superhero, and I'm aware of, like, the villains' names and something, but I didn't get, like, the detail until I watched Tim's version of Batman. And, like, the march, it just sets up completely. It's like, you know, it starts off very quiet, very mysterious, you know, and that's you know, Batman, that's kind of the Bruce Wayne character coming in, and then suddenly, you know, it comes on and it's loud, and it's like, so it's got that superhero thing to it, and, you know, the power, and so all you need is just, like, you know, a piece of music, and it already sets it up. And it just gets you so excited when it just builds up, you know. And I had that same feeling when I saw it at Royal Albert Hall. I mean, oh my goodness, I was just like, it's the Batman theme! And I went with a friend who's a huge Batman fan, so I was like, you know, this is gonna be your favorite. And she was like, oh my god! So that was awesome. Sometimes all you need is a piece of music and you automatically understand. And I think, particularly when the film was released, obviously the only other Batmans we've had were the comics and the Adam West TV show, which, as you guys know, was, well, just camp. So I think this theme really set up that this was not going to be like Adam West, okay? This was going to be a whole new Batman that was relating to the comic books, but still having its own unique touch to it, and that's great. Love it. It's, well, how can you have a top 10 prologue without, you know, an actual story being told to you? And of course, Big Fish comes to mind. And it's sort of, like, again, maybe it becomes from my, because I had no idea what Big Fish was all about. I wasn't told anything about it. We were just told, because I saw it at school, and I didn't know who Tim Burton was at that time, and I was just like, you know, I had no idea what movie I was going in for. But this story sort of set it up going, oh wow, this is going to be a little bit different than I thought. And it sort of had, and I like the sort of, it had both the fantasy element and the reality element in there, but it didn't feel like two separate things. Because I find that's kind of hard to do, because I've seen movies that have tried to sort of do that, and it's sort of, they don't always gel together, but this one really did. You sort of, you know, it showed the kind of person that Edward Bloom was, you know, a storyteller, and he entrances everyone, you know, like my favorite is the prom day, and she's like, what did you do? Like, you know, and you're immediately drawn into this story. Like, I was like, wow, that's cool, like a wedding ring trying to catch this fish, like, are you gonna catch it? And I was like, yeah. I'm getting excited over if you're going to catch a fish, you know, but it's just the way that Edward tells it, and it's great. But at the same time, you still get the character of William, and, you know, the fact that obviously you get that opinion that, you know, he's very distant from his father and doesn't really understand him. So immediately, you get character already. And it sort of had, and I think it showed the slew of emotions that this film had. It had, you know, in the prologue, it had a bit of comedy, it had a bit of wonder, it had a bit of reality, it had a, you know, it had emotion to it. It had this sort of, like, power to it. So, and, you know, obviously, well, I cry so much at the end of that movie, but, you know, it was, but, you know, I think, considering I had no idea what film it was going to be or what it was going to be about, like, the prologue really set it up for me. Okay, it's going to have a bit of everything, and that's great, you know? Well, I think Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is quite high on the list because, again, this is personal, you know, experience, you know. Mainly I'm talking about first experiences with his movies when it comes to prologues, you know, because, like I said, it sets it up for you. And, you know, obviously, back when I was a child, like, Roald Dahl was one of my main authors I, you know, read. The others were like, you know, Dr. Seuss, Lemony Snicket, J.K., you know, and it was like, but Roald Dahl was definitely one of them, and so Charlie and the Chocolate Factory I love. So when this movie came out, I was hyped. I was like, oh my god, this could be the Charlie version I was waiting for. Because I didn't know who Tim Burton was. Because, like I said, this was the very, very, very first film of his that I saw. And it just immediately set it up. It had that, I loved that it captured the mystery of the factory. Because again, this was a factory that was, you know, closed down for a while, and you never see Willy Wonka. And even though the smokes are coming out of the chimney, it's like, well, you know, Charlie even asks, like, well, who's running the machines? How's it working if you don't see anyone come in or come out? You know, it's like, it has that mysterious quality as well, and of course, it sort of had that kind of lightness and darkness of it, and, you know, this is something that I love about Roald Dahl. He has a great mixture of it, so I never felt like, and that's probably why he was such a successful author, because he never talked down to kids, he talked with them, saying, look, there are going to be dark things in the world, you know, there are going to be consequences, you know, it's like, you know, that was great, and this movie certainly sets that up. It had that edginess, but it had that in, you know, the wonder of the factory at the same time. And that was all within the first, you know, few minutes, listening to the main titles and, you know, looking at the process of how, you know, the chocolate was made, and you know, you get the golden tickets down, and it was fantastic. Oh yeah. Well, maybe it just comes from, you know, the Danny Elfman score and the stop motion animation. I mean, this is Halloween. Like, every time I watch, like, you know, I love the soundtrack, obviously, and, you know, I listen to the song, This is Halloween, and, you know, you already get a sort of adrenaline, but it's one thing to listen to it, it's one thing to actually listen to it and see it. You know, the puppets really made it come together, and, like, you know, it had that excitement, and, you know, the love for Halloween, and, again, you know, the introduction of Jack is like, okay, this is gonna be our main character, and, you know, you sort of already get that feeling, like, he hasn't even spoken yet, but you have that feeling that you are going to love Jack. I mean, I haven't come across even like people who are not exactly like huge fans of the film and think it's okay. They love Jack. I mean, how can you not like him? I love Jack so much. So it just had that adrenaline to it, and it just gets you excited to watch something. And I love it when films do that. It just draws you in. And the first song, and again, the stop motion animation, the look of Halloween Town, and, you know, you see all the different characters. It's wonderful, and of course you know, being a Tim Burton fan, it really shows, you know, his artistic side, and that's probably why I love Nightmare so much, is because, like, you know, it's clear that these are his creations, his characters, his drawings in stop motion form. I mean, you know, that's awesome. Oh, of course, of course. Oh gosh, how do I talk about this one? I think that this was a great way of setting the mood and atmosphere, because, you know, particularly when you're trying to do a horror movie, you have to atmosphere. It's so important, and again, this Sleepy Hollow is a homage to Hammer horror. And this got it from the cinematography and, you know, just the way it felt. Like, even like the first few seconds, like, you get this red liquid coming down on the paper, and you automatically think it's blood, but no, it's actually just hot wax, you know. And it's like I love it when it tricks you like that. And then of course you have the score, you have the first murder that takes place, which is great and already sets it up for you. It starts off, you know, kind of quiet, and then suddenly, bam, it all starts kicking off, and then you get the introduction of Ichabod, and you sort of already kind of get what kind of character he's going to be, and so, you know, and you're thinking, well, he's going to be in the ride for his life. And then, of course, you have Christopher Lee setting it up for you. I mean, yeah, Christopher Lee is definitely no stranger to horror, Hammer horror. I mean, he was Dracula, and, you know, just him kind of, you know, he's the one who tells Ichabod about, this is the kind of town you're going to go in, this is something that you're going to encounter, and, you know, Christopher Lee, like I said, he has that voice that you don't just listen to him, you pay attention to him, and that's the weight of his voice. Oh my god, how does he do it? And it's like you are really paying attention, and so because of that, you already get the sense of the kind of story you're going to go for, and you're kind of nervous, but you're very excited, and again, you know, Christopher Lee introducing a Hammer horror film. Oh, like a film that's like, you know, a homage to Hammer horror film. Like, what more could you want? You know, so it was fantastic. Okay, so again, like I said, main titles really set it up for you, and, you know, it is I do find that it's a little bit of a shame that we don't get as many just films that just have main titles anymore. It's kind of a shame, but, you know, sometimes I see a couple that do that. But this, like when I saw the stage version, the opening title, so the main thing, that was actually a song, and it was sort of a choir. They sort of had a kind of Greek choir going on in Sweeney Todd, which was interesting. I can understand why they cut out the lyrics, because I don't think it would have worked for a movie, so I'm kind of glad they did it. But man, this thing just sets it up, like, and of course the image of the blood and like the sort of the kind of process of it starts, you see it in London, and then you see the chair, and the chair is a character, and then you get the gears and just the sound of the gears spinning around. It was wonderful with the music as well, and then suddenly it goes down into the pie oven, then down into the sewers. It just shows the process. So you immediately you understand what kind of story it is, and and you sort of get the indication of what kind of characters you're going to see, because obviously the chair represents Sweeney and the pies represent Mrs. Lovett, and so it was one. And of course the music, I mean, it's brilliant. It sets it out for you. It I love again how it starts off very quiet, very mysterious, and then it just goes like it's like this horrific nightmare, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful. So gets me excited to watch it. No matter how many times I've seen this movie, it's just like, oh yay! And so for my number 1 Tim Burton prologue, I think you can guess it. But anyway, here it is. Well, of course, it's my favorite movie. How can I not, put Edward Scissorhands at number 1? Man, again, this comes from first experience, because again, I had no idea what kind of movie I was going in for. I was like, wait, you got a guy with scissors for hands. What the fuck is that all about? So the main credits and the prologue, of that kind of fairy tale image of like, a grandmother, telling a story to a little girl, and then you have that wonderful shot over the town, and then you kind of see him, but you don't see him, of Edward looking down onto the neighborhood, and it just set it up for me. And so like, when I was watching it the first time, I was like, this is not what I think it's gonna be. Like I was already, I was having really good feelings about this movie, and of course, after that, it became my favorite movie, so, So again, the prologue really set it up for me. It had that fairy tale quality to it, and I love that. And then when you find out who the old woman is, I won't spoil anything, but when you find out who she is, it sort of makes sense, and again, the snow, and just the look of it was one, and the music, oh my goodness, And again, like I said in Big Eyes and Ed Wood and Batman, you already get the sense of the character before you even meet him. And so, you find out about, the origins, that he was a creation, he's not exactly human, and, you're sort of excited, and you can't wait to actually finally see the character, because you're like, what is he gonna look like? And then, he's in it, I was like, oh! So, I have to put it as number 1. It's my favorite movie. I mean, you might have a different favorite prologue, but Edward Scissorhands is definitely mine, so. But anyway, yeah, that's it for my top 10 Burton prologues. I hope to see you again soon. In fact, I think my next top 10 list will be my top Tim Burton climaxes. So be warned, there's going to be spoilers. I hope to see you guys soon. Bye!